to decide the outcome. West Pakistan now is just Pakistan, lost half of its country. Lubna and two artist friends at that time, however, were ready to have an exhibition. They decided to have a three-person show. Yusuf Agha, sitting here in the front, besides Lubna, the journalist who wrote about the show and later married Lubna, explained that, in the article, that solo or group exhibitions were the norm in Pakistan, but small group or three-person exhibitions were thus far unheard of. This was going to be a first. So the buzz in Pakistan was loud. Furthermore, the three artists were a curious mix of age, gender, and experience. Ahmed Pervez was a famous senior male artist. Lubna was a young and upcoming female artist. And Aftab Ahmed was a young, unknown male painter. They decided to call the exhibition the Three Non-Depressionists. Pervez remarked that there was a malaise in the country with the loss of East Pakistan, and that most of the artists, anyway, were using muddy and depressing colors. The colors that they used, their colors, were bright and cheerful. The country needed an uplift, Pervez said, so let's call ourselves the Happy Gay Artists. Now, having returned not so long ago from London, Lubna cautioned that using the term gay might evoke a meaning different from what they intended. So then they settled on the title, The Three Non-Depressionists. Of course, it was a successful endeavor. Lubna's style continued evolving. The horizontal and the vertical grid became the linchpin for geometric shapes. The paintings continued to change. They became soft, white, fluffy shapes, like cotton balls with red accents and black staccato outlines. The series soon became known as Lubna's white paintings, and journalists were having a heyday. One journalist initiated the search for hidden meaning in these paintings, and in others similar to this. He wrote, each of Lubna's paintings is a Sahara of white, with a pale oasis of circular and thorn-like forms, resembling broken eggshells, bleeding nipples, and suggesting of nude contours of human figures. Quote and unquote. In conservative Pakistan, this was extremely provocative reporting. If I remember correctly, Lubna was uncomfortable with some of the questions that followed the reporting, this reporting. In retrospect, I think that she finds it quite amusing. But you can ask her when she comes up on the stage about that incident. On the other hand, she evoked other, more important discussions. One centered on the sources and the meaning of art. She made it clear that painting began with no preconceived idea. Journalists continued to look for the hidden meaning. Nevertheless, she explained that the technical language of art is so vast, the artist can explore endlessly without worrying about extraneous things. However, she conceded that if content were embedded in her work, it was subconscious. Paintings were an expression of her life, her soul, and her experiences. When the journalist wondered why she kept changing her style, Lubna insisted that an artist must grow and not become stagnant. Yusuf interviewed Lubna at that time also, and clarified many of her views. He wrote a lengthy, in-depth essay that surely had a decisive impact on the Pakistan art community, on the collectors also, and it stood as a model for other journalists in Pakistan. life-changing event took place in 1991 when Lubna and Yusuf moved to Sacramento, California. Yusuf enrolled at California State University in Sacramento to get his second master's degree. He became a full-time student, and Lubna took extension classes in printmaking. They lived in student housing on campus with their two small children, so it was cramped quarters, naturally, and they didn't have much money at that time. She wasn't able to spread out and to make large paintings like she had done when she was in Pakistan. So she did pen and ink drawings and watercolors. Both her style and her subject matter changed dramatically. As you can see, the drawings were figurative and expressed a sense of alienation she was feeling, being so far away from her home, her parents, her family, and her culture. Yeah, she had spent a year in London, but Pakistanis are far more accustomed to British culture because they have been a British colony for way over 100 years. And London wasn't on the other side of the globe either. Sunflowers that you see here, emblematic of the sunny Karachi climate, press their roots through the figures, flying. Perhaps Lubna Agha. In the frieze below, people are wearing very little, nearly nude, probably because she's missing the traditional shalwar kameez and sari that she was accustomed to wearing in Pakistan and had to be abandoned in Sacramento. Life is topsy-turvy. Figures are upside, downside. The watercolors expressed a similar sentiment. Bodies falling and limbs detached from the bodies because they are haunted by an inner turmoil. They fall from an impenetrable environment down into a dark, deep blue abyss. 3 Days was one of the paintings Lubna included in a solo exhibition in Karachi when she returned there on a visit in 1986. The journalists and the art critics and the art community were surprised by the dramatic change. They hadn't seen her work for 6 years. They said she did a complete turnabout from non-figuration to figuration, but they loved it. Now, all the Pakistani artists were doing abstract and non-figurative work, but there was only one other watercolor painter in all of Pakistan at this time. Lubna was indisputably Pakistan's foremost expatriate artist, and still one of the most important artists in Pakistan. At Sacramento State University, Lubna took a printmaking class and was the only student to catch the eye of Wayne Thiebaud when he paid a visit to the class. He asked her, "Why are none of your figures grounded?" She answered, "I came from Pakistan recently, and I don't have my bearings here yet. It is a metaphor." Thiebaud nodded, smiled, and walked away. And if any of you know anything about Thiebaud, that's something. I studied under him, so I know that's something. That's more than he ever recognized in me. And not long after that, Lubna began exhibiting in galleries in Sacramento, California. The critics liked her work, but they were surprised that a Pakistan lady would use nudes so freely in her work. Lubna set them straight. That's also something you can ask her about in just a few minutes. Soon Lubna began a period of social political commentary. This was the first for her. Disturbed by the renewed reports of the status of women in Pakistan and in India, she painted Doli, which is, the name Doli means a pelican, that in the olden days the bride was carried to the groom's house at the wedding, at the time of the wedding. Here, however, the bride in her traditional red sari is stiff, bound by the limitations of culture to limited freedom of expression. Lubna once said that for some women, marriage was a spiritual death in Pakistan. She's carried by men in short dhotis to give the appearance of villagers, of village farmers. The villagers hold a more provincial attitude than city businessmen. Her watercolors continued to take on new motifs and evolve in style. By 1991, Lubna and Yusuf had been in the United States for 10 years, and the crisis of disorientation and the pangs of separation from Pakistan were moderated by periodic visits there. She had exhibitions on most of the visits, and she kept her reputation in Pakistan intact. Back in Sacramento, Yusuf purchased the Mac II with Adobe Illustrator, and Lubna became adept at computer graphics. This involvement shows up in her painting, and she started a design studio called Image Makers. And also, a little later, she became employed as a graphic designer. She had several Fortune 500 companies, in fact, as her clients when she was the Image Makers director. In 1995, Lubna and her family drove to Boston for Yusuf's new job. A painting called Waiting, sorry, it's gotten cut off, but it is Waiting, shows her uneasy detachment from Pakistan and a new awareness of technology and the landscape that caught her eye in the trip by car from California to Massachusetts. The John Namaz series saw a return to satire and political commentary. The extensive attention given to Pakistan after September 11th, which most of us remember, elicited serious discussions among her family and her friends. The Janamaz, or prayer mats, depict America as the power monger and Pakistan as the foolhardy victim. About this time, McDonald's had begun to inundate Pakistan with fast food palaces. And I'm not misreading, it's not places, it's palaces, and Lubna and Yusuf are laughing. Let me get my place here, because this is important. Yes, okay. McDonald's had begun to inundate Pakistan with fast food palaces that make our homegrown restaurants look like second-class truck stops. Literally. Middle-class and wealthy Pakistani citizens flocked to the McDonald's in their dress-up clothes. Sure, McDonald's provided employment for unemployed Pakistani youth, but we know that all the big profits came back to the USA. So this is the prayer rug for McDonald's. This is the IMF, the IMF prayer rug. Was also a double-edged sword. What did Pakistan's bureaucrats agree to in order to merit such huge infusions of cash into their country? Many Pakistanis joke that Pakistan is the